Poletna noć, bila je nainto, sve stene iz dreves, zastrane put, preprogan travni bijak, spisne proza noć, bez strihe, bez zidov, mlado je toplo. Poletna noč, ljubezni znajo šepet, čustev žar strasti, vse mine, vse ostane bez spoznan in prgišče sam. Spominom sto nastale dni. Pridi kdaj pome, z ognjem v očeh, bova ljubila se vso noč, pa pogled in nasmeh in poljub, tak zase zdaj. Živiva srečna sva, samo nam pride sveta, kot vsi ljudje, mlada kot prej. Kot vsi ljudje, mlada kot prej. Sredi zvest, noč in dan, se vrtita svet, zemlja pleše, jamec zvezde. A desni pride spet jesen, tisoč pleše, zemlja pleše. Orion, saksofon, pisec kontrabas, zemlja pleše, jamec zvezde. In z njo gradu vsak oblak in vse ceste in celo dan, mali dom. Sredi zvest, noč in dan, se vrtita svet, zemlja pleše, jamec zvezde. A desnik pride maj, pride spet jesen, tisoč pleše, zemlja pleše. Orion, saxophone, mixed contrabass, and la picture. Ignogradus sacroblat, vinset sestre incelota, Amido, incelota dai, Amido. Meri skrini ljudmi, se nikoli ne zgodi, da zmagala. Pri vseh drugih pa velja, da je nekaj slabega, če preveč priznaš. In odkar ta svet stoji, so na njem živeli ti in ti. Človek bližnjega spozna, ko ga pravi isto, pa manj. Med iskrenimi ljudmi so preproste sreče, kot jasen dan. Se pa najde marsikdo, ki se zdi mu nepusto, če je svet prav. In če misliš tudi ti, da je dolg čas prestaži, preproste sreče, kot jasen dan. Se pa najde marsikdo, ki mu prepusto, če je svet prav. Če misliš tudi ti, da je dolg čas brez laži, pomiraj s to. Daj se tevam jutrišnji, meni skrenimi. Daj se tevam jutrišnji, meni skrenimi. Začne proti, jako pravčka, ki še nič ne ve. Z najnega sveta zanešme roke, rahlo me poljubi in potegneš ve, poslušaš mi prid srca, zanešme roke. Daš, da sem lepa, da Gledam ti v oči, mi je sreča cveti. Iz najnega sveta vsega šminkoke rad te poljubi in potem ti še poslušaš mi.
Good morning.
Srca na naš pev, da veš, da sem lepa. Gledam ti v oči, da sreča ti. Brez besed bova našla se nekje, z roko v roki šla naprej. Toda poletni mimo, brez besed, brez vprašanj in brez plačil. Bova nosila pušček stan in bova jutro prerasla, večno željo, da še kdaj ne čisto vitašna. Bova jutro prerasla, večno željo, da še kdaj ne čisto vitašna.
Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues and project partners. Welcome to the third day of the transnational learning journey in Slovenia, the event organized within the framework of the LCA4Regions Interreg project. I hope that you enjoyed very much, like me, the event which was performed for the last 2 days already, and today this is our third day and the final day of the event. The event is devoted to the exchange of experience of life cycle assessment methodologies for public procurement in Slovenia. So today we will have, first of all, two presentations on the schedule. The first presentation comes from Finland, and it will be about the presentation about the current status and good examples of public procurement in Finland. And then the second presentation will be on the use of LCA in Europe and green public procurement. Then in the second part of the program, we will be listening to the presentation of the Slovenian policy context, and then we will do separate discussions in breakout sessions. And finally, we will continue with the discussion in the plenary or the main meeting room, and then we will conclude the event with the wrap-up session. So to start the program, I will ask now my colleague Francesco from the ACR Plus in Belgium to provide a summary of the second day of the event, and then also to provide guidelines for using the interactive discussion platform. So Francesco, please go ahead.
Thanks, Albin. I just shared in the chat links to today discussion boards, and today we talk about with the plural version because we will try to have dedicated discussion boards for each of the breakout rooms. Let's start with a short recap of yesterday's conclusions. And I have to admit, I had somehow a bit of fun this morning putting arrows together to the elements we saw yesterday. Just give me a second to close this one. And the first way to express that I had a bit of fun is that, as you can see, finally we have a messy board. It means that there are many interconnections between the different elements that we discussed yesterday. Still, let me highlight few clusters. Sorry. And I will maybe ask to Fritz just to end about the methodological comments that are a bit transversal to all the cluster we faced. So a first one, joining together different presentation is, I'm trying to call it about governance, is the one linked by red arrows. And it came up when some of you discussed about importance of central purchasing system, consolidation and centralization of green procurement processes, and municipal governance of public procurement with a single operating unit having enough knowledge and capacity to start, initiate, monitor, and inform, and give suggestion to different stakeholders with different implication, which came out as an example in of Milan with the connection with this through the blue arrows. So on no, sorry, to Navarra on how green public procurement needs to be connected with the wider policy objectives. And this is somehow cascading also on environmental criteria of procurement processes. We discussed through Navarra cases and generally on the cases on food policies are how they were connected, sorry, to food policies and how environmental criteria needs somehow to be also covering concepts as organic and artisanal, which are having implications also on the social elements, not only on the environmental sphere of this criteria. And the discussions moved also through the connection with biofood labels and all the elements that can be taken into consideration when public procurement is about food and canteens. The discourse on governance had some cascading also on tools that local administration have to support LCA in public procurement. We had a very relevant presentation on the limits and the barrier that we have in the application of a green public procurement system. And we have here a cluster of comments, which is starting from the limits of list of green products that they might be a bit reductive on wider impacts on GPP policies. But by the other side, if we look at them, they are a useful tool to incentivize participation of SMEs that needs to find somehow easy to use tools. Otherwise, they will be a bit scared on approaching green public procurement. In any case, what we saw in Slovenia, in the Slovenian case, is that heavy regulation and environmental criteria, they are not the only tool. Bureaucratization has its downside, and there are a lot of soft laws, fiscal incentives and recommendation and voluntary agreements that can complement GPP wider policies. Coming back to Navarra, it was a very interesting example on how green public procurement can promote some form and principle of extended producer responsibility, like asking to SMEs to include in the procurement processes elements connected with education and raising awareness section. Which is not a pure environmental criteria, but it's a very relevant leverage. Trying to be very synthetic, not to steal too much time. Starting from Fritz's comment on how carbon footprint is the most applied criteria for GPP approaches. Multi-criteria are very rare to find somehow. This is somehow connected to the first presentation of LCA tools we had yesterday, and we can see that the key question from public authorities were about adaptability and ease of use. How can they be easily used in local context? And this is somehow connected on why we have single criteria GPP processes or LCC methodologies. This is a bit connected also with many practices, including catalogs of green products rather than wider multi-criteria set. I just, as to conclude this part, this is a post it appeared during the night, is a bit it doesn't seem more than a reflection. It seems that someone wanted to share something. So I don't know if the author want to step up to say something on what's behind this post-it. Okay, we will. If not, we will have time during the day. And to conclude, we face the topic mainly from the perspective of local system and decentralized public authorities, but it is a bit isolated. But as a background consideration, we also faced how national regulation, and we have to take into consideration national and regulation and EU directives, and sometimes national regulation might be lagging behind EU directives. And those are, I don't know if Fritz want to add something, but those were the main conclusion I found out in yesterday's board.
No, I think you've covered it very well, Francesco. A lot of interesting comments coming out, and I think there'll be some more coming out later this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Francesco, and thank you very much, Fritz. So we will now continue with the program of today's event. So first of all, there will be a presentation delivered by Ms. Katrina Alhola from the Finnish Environment Institute in Finland, and she will give a talk entitled Current Status and Good Examples of Sustainable and Innovative Public Procurement in Finland. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I'm Katrina Alhola, and I work as a senior researcher in the Finnish Environment Institute in Syke in Helsinki. And my topic today is about sustainable public procurement and how we promote SPP in Finland. And I will also present the Keino Competence Center, which I work as an expert as well. So let me share my presentation. I think it's here. Actually, no. So do you now see my presentation?
Yes, we see your presentation, okay. But please put it into the presentation mode.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I was just confirming that it's the right one. Okay, thank you. So agenda for today from my side is few words about Keino Competence Center, which is a kind of unique platform for promoting sustainable public procurement. And also like few words about the status of SPP in Finland, and also a couple of words about innovative public procurement and what we do on that topic. And then several examples of sustainable innovative public procurement in Finland. So first about Keino, you may have heard about Keino Competence Center, and it is really kind of competence center because it really has targets and it has objectives to promote sustainable and innovative public procurement in Finland. So both sides are also sustainable but also innovative. But what makes it different from other competence centers is that Keino works as network-based. So it's not a new organization as such, but it's a network of existing organizations that have, like, for many years already being in the field of GPP and SPP. So Motiva it's a government sustainable development promotion company, and Motiva is coordinating this Keino network or Keino Competence Center, and also the Association of Finnish Municipalities is one of our main partners, and other partners in Keino are Hansel, which is the government's center purchasing body, and also a Business Finland, which actually is the funding organization for innovative public procurement in Finland. And then there are two research organizations, Technical Research Center of Finland, VTT, and then Finnish Environment Institute, Syke. And Keino was built already in 2018, and it's funded by the Ministry of Economic Affairs. But there are also other ministries that are steering Keino work, especially the Ministry of Environment. So now we have like 3 years experience of Keino already. And well, the main objective is to promote both sustainable and innovative public procurement, and we have different tasks or functions to do that. One of the main tasks that Keino works on is to increase the awareness of strategic procurement and management and impact thinking. So I think we should like transfer to like more to the buying of impacts and thinking of effectiveness and impacts of public procurement more than the lowest price thinking. So what we do in Keino is to try to affect like public procurers to consider more like the impacts of their procurements and impacts of the euros that they spend on procurement. And of course, Keino assists contracting entities in management tool development, for example, in LCA calculation tools. And then Keino also has these kinds of buyer groups. So we gather a few public buyers in a certain theme together, and then they start to develop procurement of that theme. So for example, we have low carbon construction group and many others. And then Keino supports the development of procurement competence of the procurers, what they do in their daily work. So Keino also provides tools for them. And then Keino also seeks to strengthen international networks and learning also from like international procurers and in international contexts. So what we have learned from Keino so far is that it's very vital that all the ministries behind the Keino they also like reach the same direction, so that they have the same objectives and targets, so that the Keino can actually have a mandate to its work and have time to do the work instead of bureaucracy. And what we have also learned is that working together, we can really achieve more. These organizations that are now involved in Keino, they used to work separately from each other, and they used to actually compete on the same public money to do the work, for example, like the promotion work or the research work that we do. So now when we work together as a consortium, I think also the money that is used for promotion is spent much more effectively. And we have also like developed new things that wouldn't have happened if we all organizations worked separately. And there's also, we can call this like an experimental culture. The competence center itself is kind of a new way to do things. So it's kind of an experiment itself, but we also encourage procurement units to find new ways and to do kind of experimental work as well. So this is what Keino does, and now there has just 2 months ago, the 4th year in Keino work started. So we are continuing, and it seems that there's going to be more funding for the forthcoming years as well. But Keino is funded like an annual base, so we don't have kind of 10 years funding. So it's always like a 1 or 2 years on. So that actually that's not very effective way to plan this Keino work. So we would need kind of continuous funding to make further plans. But this is just like the framework of what we think that sustainable public procurement is. So I think it can be framed under the sustainability goals set in the Agenda 2030. And there are many goals that actually public procurement can support. So this is just like the big frame how we consider sustainable public procurement in Finland. But then in Finland, the spending it's 35 billion euros annually, so it's quite a lot. and 2/3 is from municipalities. So it's kind of 16% of the GDP in Finland as well. So we can really say that buyer has the power of public purse. 2 years ago, carbon footprint of public procurement in Finland was measured for the first time. It was calculated based on the input-output model. And what we found actually were actually the main product groups where the remarkable carbon footprint exists, and we can say that it's the heating of buildings, it's the construction sector, and the maintenance of construction and infrastructure, and related like activities and electricity, gas, oil, and so on. But also major impacts is caused by traveling, mobility, and catering and food, and also cleaning services, and some other product groups as well. So this study actually gave us a good picture of those product groups that we should really focus on. And it was also notable that in municipalities, almost half of the emissions is actually caused by the procurement of services. Actually, this report is also in English, so you can find it from the web, from this address. But sustainable public procurement it's not measured systematically in Finland, but we do every now and then either questionnaires or some kind of collection of the status. And at the moment, Keino is actually developing measurement tools how we could measure the state of SPP and also innovative public procurement like more systematically, and we are planning to make kind of a data collection system and link it to the national database of public tenders. But this work is on its way, so it's not ready yet. But we can say that actually almost like 70% of procurers, they do pay attention to environment in their procurement strategy, and more than half of procurers pay attention to social aspects. But what we also can say that actually only half of the procurers really follow up how these targets are met. And then from the calls for tenders, we can say that actually energy and environmental aspects are at general level. They are included in 2/3 of the calls for tenders, but more clearly they are defined in more than a bit more than 40% of calls for tenders, which means that these include at least one like well-defined criteria or some kind of validation is required. And life cycle basis is used also only in like 15% of the calls for tenders, where they consider like the whole life cycle of the subject matter of the contract. And quite often used criteria are like energy efficiency and related issues, and also like Euro norms in transportation or in vehicles, but also like quality management system of the supplier. But we consider in Keino that when we promote sustainable public procurement, we should focus not only to tender competition phase, but also or even more to planning phase, and then the contract and supplier development phase after the actual competition. And Keino's focus is actually in this planning stage. So we help procurers to identify their need and how they actually define their need in terms of sustainability and innovative issues. and also like to understand the importance of the market dialogue and the supplier information and what they could do actually in the planning phase already. But we also, of course, we do this kind of what we call like promoting work with the procurers, that we also help them in the tender competition phase, so that they can actually set those criteria well. But if I still have like a few minutes, I would like to present some examples from sustainable public procurement in Finland. And actually this website address presents the examples in English. We have quite a lot of good examples in these Keinos websites, but they are mostly in Finnish, but there are also a few in English. So I think you can find them quite interesting if you go and see. One example is new learning environment. So traditionally we can also call it as a school, but how it was defined in the contract, it was new learning environment. And it was based on life cycle model, and the objective in this procurement was really like buy new environment for effective learning, and the environmental issues were really a key objectives, and there were many solutions, or some of them were also very innovative. What were actually developed in this project. And the municipality actually they saved quite a lot of money, because these solutions actually led to the situation that they didn't have to build as large building as they first thought. So it was the smaller building which actually made also the smaller footprint and smaller amount of money. And one example that we quite often present is the Helsinki electric buses, because this was actually a platform for innovative solutions as well. And this actually follows the strategy of a Helsinki region traffic. They have quite ambitious targets to decrease 90% of their CO2 emissions by 2025, and accordingly they do their procurements well according to this strategic objective. And this electric bus case was good example also, in a sense that through this case Helsinki actually managed to build quite extensive infrastructure for electric cars, which will also like promote the private sector markets for electric cars as well. This example comes from city of Forza, where they decided to procure like circular procurement, and they selected to buy like a recycled equipment for lower secondary school students. So instead of new computers, they actually bought second-hand computers, which work very well, and they were very satisfied with the results of this procurement. And an example of food procurement, Salo is one of the municipalities in Finland that actually they follow these new criteria for sustainable procurement of catering and food products in Finland, and they have shown that these criteria can really be used in a concrete or in the actual procurement, and good results can be gained from this. In Hyvinkää daycare procurement, they for the first time used eco-labeled criteria, and this is the first eco-labeled daycare building in Finland. and actually this was kind of a front runner for this for the use of eco-labeled criteria in public buildings in Finland. Haltia is a good example of how innovative solutions can be brought into public procurement process. And this was the first time when this cross-laminated timber was introduced in public procurement in Finland, and since then it has been used quite extensively also in other public buildings. This Vantaa case is a good example when municipality wants to buy impacts instead of product or services. They actually stipulated the contract so that they wanted to buy energy efficiency instead of energy efficient solutions. And this is a very nice examples on how the supplier was actually the one who decided which kind of solutions could make the most or the highest energy efficiency rates. We also have like this electricity cars network, which is a municipality of E, which actually succeeded to promote the electricity cars in the area and also among the citizens in the area. So this is a bit similar example than the Helsinki example. But what we can say based on these examples and our experience in Gain work, what we need to promote sustainable public procurement is, well, first of all, change of mindset of the procurers, but also cooperation and within the procurers, but also with the potential suppliers and other stakeholders. And then market dialogue is one of the key success factors here. But also, I would say that this life cycle impact and its consideration is one of the most important things that should do, not only in the cost sense, but also like the impacts what they have on the environment. And then we have also came up with some challenges that we feel that procurers face. Well, of course, I think the main barrier or challenge is the lack of know-how, and then of course the fear of risk and mistakes that could be done, and then also like the insufficient knowledge of the suppliers and markets, or then difficulties to integrate existing solutions to new solutions, or maybe simply just the lack of resources in the organization and too much workload for procurers. But I think we have a few minutes for questions. So,
right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for your very interesting and illustrative presentation, which is now open for questions and comments. So I can see there in the chat area, there are no questions, no comments, and also in the live discussion board, there is also no question. So
I have a question, Albin.
Okay, please go ahead, Fritz.
Yes, congratulations for a very interesting presentation. I learned a lot from that. So yes, my question really is, of the excellent examples that you showed in the case studies, how many of these lessons have been adopted by other municipalities? So what has been the experience of imitation and horizontal learning among the partners?
yes, this experience that we have learned, they are based on like quite extensive data of different cases. actually they are also challenges that we faced in our daily work when we have discussions with the procuring units and when we do this gain work. And we have had, in this Keino, we have actually had 2 rounds of so-called Keino Academy, in which we have, like, from the in the both rounds we have had around 30 public procurers in or municipalities or other public procuring units, and they have participated this kind of development program. We call Keino Academy as a development program, and we have had like very deep discussions and also like workshops, and where we have done this work with them, and we have been struggling with them in their challenges and trying to find solutions and solve their challenges together. So yes, in our results there are like much more than few cases behind, and we have collected quite large like data also when we do our daily Keino work, and based on that data we would actually we could do like more, even more like what I would say, like scientific articles as well, and we are planning to publish our experience from Keino work also, like in the form of articles.
Okay, thank you. But I'd like to reply to that if I could, Alban, that for
Yes,
the
yes.
LCA4Regions project, horizontal learning, exchange of experience is an important component in the project itself. And most of the good practices we've seen, they do highlight what is the learning potential and the repetition potential, but we've not been tracking the actual rate at which good examples are being copied. And it seems to me that if the good examples remain as good examples, but no one is imitating it and copying it, or rather we are not measuring the rate at which these are being copied, we're not achieving the full potential of the good examples. The good examples remain isolated. So I was just wondering if there's any metric that you've been using to see. Also, this is a challenge for all the partners, Alban and Sandra, in the Interreg project. What is the metric of actually measuring the rate of imitation, the rate of copying of good examples?
I'm not sure, did I understand really what we have done in Keino. Actually, this is a kind of collection also like from previous studies that we have been doing. So in quite many studies in Finland and also like in international studies that we've been involved, we have done this kind of case based work, and we have like a quite well data about like very many cases. So I think well, do you mean by the metric there what has been like the method, how we collect the data, or how we could like spread the examples or the experiences, or what is kind of the metric?
What I was thinking of is what I was thinking of for the good practice case studies, for example, where it says the potential for learning is this. It would be good for each partner, each case study to say, has been copied by such and such a municipality, or has been copied 12 times by other partners. Okay. So some sort of indicator of not just what is the potential, but what is the actual rate of replication. And if the good practice case studies could actually indicate how often their example has been copied, this would also be quite a good inspiration for further replication. But this is not specifically a criticism of your work, Katrina. It's also a comment that appears to me now that we should consider for the LCA4Regions project.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and Keino is actually, that's not a research project. Keino is more like promoting work.
Yep.
So we are not kind of doing a research in Keino, but we have gained so much experience and also good results that we could actually also publish some of the results based on our experiences, like as a scientific papers or so. And we are also planning to do that, and also like the impacts and the effectiveness of Keino work is one of the very interesting interesting issues, like from the researcher's point of view. But Keino as such is more like doing like expert work. It's not kind of research
Yep.
work as such.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll leave some time for other people's questions, but we might come back to you on this particular point at a later stage.
Okay, we will have time just for one more short question, and this is coming from Tomasz. So the question is the following: what is the role of ministries in Keino activity? Can you reply this in just 1 minute, please?
Yeah, the ministries, yes. Well, they the representatives of most of the ministries in Finland, they are actually in the Keino steering group. So they follow the Keino work, and they also set some targets that they would want Keino to achieve, and also they steer that the work that we do in Keino is actually in line with the national objectives that are set for public procurement, and also like for other programs, sustainability programs or innovative programs in Finland. So it's more their role is in steering.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your participation in the event and for giving us a very interesting talk. So I thank you on behalf of all the participants and project partners. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will now move further accordingly to our program to the next presentation, which will be given by Dr. Fritz Balkau from the Sustainable Solutions, and also a person who greatly participates in the LCA4Regions project. And we are all eager to listen to his presentation, which will be on LCA in Europe and green public procurement. So please, Fritz, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Albin. I'm trying to share my presentation. Can you see? Are you able to see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Share content. Can you see it now?
Yes, now we can see it, but please enlarge the window.
It's coming.
Yeah.
How's that?
Now there are 2 frames of
2 frames.
Oh.
Ah. What can you see now?
Still the same. This is it's a PowerPoint presentation with 2 gray frames, and there is a small icon, and there was time running, a stopwatch.
Just a minute. I have it on my screen. Do you have it on your screen? Not yet?
We still have on the screen, we still have the same. So it would be fine if you can enlarge this this window.
Yes.
But now it goes into this mode for presenters.
Yes, I'm in presenter mode, but
Yeah.
I'm not.
A technical assistant is coming to my room, so he will help. He will explain what to do.
You most likely have a second monitor, correct?
That's right.
Yes. Can you please disable the presentation mode in the PowerPoint presentation?
How's that?
Okay, now it works.
Now it
Now it
works.
works?
Yeah, now
Okay.
it's okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. And after the first presentation by Katrina, I feel rather intimidated. It was really excellent to listen to her. My task this morning is threefold, really. What we're going to do is to have a quick look at LCA in European policies. This is largely for the benefit of the external stakeholders who have not been participating so much in the previous meetings and previous workings of the LCA4Regions project. And then I'm going to give a short analysis of green public procurement and where LCA and LCC sits in that, with some comments also on what we've heard so far from the good practices. Let's have a quick look. So the content really I'm going to cover is what is sustainability, what is the life cycle management toolbox, how is EU policy based on life cycle thinking and on LCA, what's happening in the EU on green public procurement, the life cycle tools used for green public procurement, and the next steps. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of these items. You're welcome to contact me afterwards if you want further information. Let's have a quick look at the role of LCA in sustainable development. As I said, this is for the benefit of those viewers and listeners who've not been part of their dialogue so far, and a refresher for those who have been part of our dialogue so far. I start off with saying, what is our vision of sustainability? And the panel on the top left is the classic way that we look at sustainability as a series of impacts, unwanted impacts, pollution, toxicity, exhaustion of the land, and so forth. But the 17 Sustainable Development Goals reformat this as a vision of desired outcomes, not so much of the damage, but the benefits that we want to derive. So the Sustainable Development Goals are based on that. There are 17 of these, and each of these 17 goals applies differently, has a different importance depending on the product, the geographic region, and the administrative circumstances. But nevertheless, this is the framework for moving forward, and this is a framework that's been adopted by most countries around the world now under the guidance of the UN. We need to be able to measure our progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, and these are just some of the metrics that we can use, some of the measures that we can use to evaluate our progress forward. I'll just mention 4 of these, there are some others. The top left, the notion of a life chain, value chain it's sometimes called, that whatever product we have has a history behind it and a future before it. And this life chain can become quite complex. Who are the subcontractors of our suppliers, for example? It can become quite complicated, but we can also simplify it by pulling out the essential elements as we move forward. The bottom left panel talks about the footprints. This is a really useful notion to evaluate our impact, but also the places where we need to make changes. The water footprint there just looks at the embedded water consumption in some common food products, for example. This is really surprising. When you see the volume of water we need to produce cheese or to grow grain or to raise beef. This is a wake-up call really for action. The top right-hand corner talks about total life cycle cost. I'll come back to this in more detail later on in the presentation, but it's not only the purchase cost as we see in the top of the iceberg there. There's a whole lot of stuff below the surface of the iceberg that we don't see, that quite often we miss when we calculate costs. For example, environmental costs are quite often put on the maintenance budget. So the environmental costs can be low, but actually they're hidden in the maintenance cost. So taking into account, actually identifying the real total life cycle cost can be a tricky business, but a very important one. And the final panel on the bottom right-hand corner, I love it. It's a really great one. I drive a clean car, but I don't see the pollution that the power station produces in order to provide the electricity for my car, nor do I see the damage that the mining the lithium causes in faraway places. So this mindset of a clean product that doesn't take account of the life chain, that doesn't take account of the footprint, and that doesn't take account of the hidden cost is really a very inadequate concept. So these are the 4 of the metrics: looking at life chain, the spillover effects, the total costs, and the footprints are just 3 examples of the sustainability metrics. So what is the solution to this? After all, it is solutions that we want. Dr. Klaus Töpfer, one-time executive director of UNEP, put it very nicely. Life cycle thinking means looking at the world behind the product. We have the product in front of us. It's sitting right there where we can see it. But what is the world behind it? And by implication, what is the world ahead of it? More and more people are interested in this, but we need to find a way of calculating this and seeing this in a standardized way. The standardized way of looking at it is often life cycle assessment. It's standardized under the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. ISO 14040 is a standardized way of evaluating the world behind the product. It has a number of elements, which I won't go into in detail here, but a particularly important one is the goal and scope definition. If our entire scope is just the clean car here, and we're not taking the outside into account, then we're not really attacking the problem at its source. Inventory analysis, impact assessment. The interpretation step is also important. So the standardization of LCA helps us move forward in a harmonized way so that we can compare the results. Through the LCA4Regions project, we've developed a series of life cycle tools. We've compiled the life cycle tools and methods, life cycle management tools, in what we call a life cycle toolbox. Now, this is not the time to go into this in detail. We just want to highlight the fact that in this toolbox, we have both life cycle thinking and life cycle assessment tools. Life cycle systems such as circular economy, industrial ecology, product service systems. These are systems and concepts that we use as we apply the life cycle assessment tools. And then we pass to action tools and life cycle management tools. This is in part for experts to undertake the calculations in the assessment, but it's very important for regions to be able to manage their consultants properly by scoping out the task that needs to be done and by insisting on a proper interpretation report from the studies. We'll come back to this a little later. The second part of my presentation this morning is to have a quick look at how life cycle thinking is used in EU policies. Some of us think that why should regions go to all the trouble of life cycle thinking? In fact, life cycle thinking is already deeply embedded in EU policies, more so than in any other region in the world. The EU has formalized life cycle thinking as it moves forward in policies, directives, communications, and so forth. But the policy cycle, it's not really a cycle, it's an arrow here. But the progression of policy development and formal policy application starts with the problem definition, policy formulation, policy impact assessment, the implementation and policy evaluation. In LCA, the EU believes that LCA is a pivotal method for policy support as we move along in the direction of this arrow. Incidentally, I should acknowledge colleague Serenina Sala from the European Joint Research Centre for some of these slides. She's not able to be here today to give her own presentation, so I'm giving some of these slides in her place. We have a quick look at the type of policies, and this, you may think this is unique to the European Union as a pan-national body, but the same diagram is relevant at regional level also. For the EU, the majority of the policies implementation take the form of communications, but there are directives, regulations, and decisions. These are important policy instruments that oblige national governments, but also regional administrations to follow whatever comes out of these decisions, regulations, and directives. We won't look at this for the moment, but except to see that regulations, directives, decisions, and recommendations are evenly spread throughout these types of policy instruments. Now we can spend some time on this table, but you will have a copy of it anyway in the record of this meeting. This shows you how some of the elements of the life cycle toolbox that I showed you a few slides ago are actually embedded in European Union policies. So what we have at the bottom, the color code, is life cycle thinking. This is non-standardized, non-quantitative thinking about life cycle aspects, the world behind the product, if you like. Life cycle assessment, a formalized assessment calculated in a quantitative fashion in a standardized way. Life cycle costing are the gray areas, and EPDs, eco labels, for want of a better word, as PEFs and OEFs in the yellow basket. So here we see on the top some of the policy instruments. There are very many of them that the European Union has promulgated and which countries and regions are obliged to follow. We can see the content of life cycle thinking and life cycle tools in the application of these policy instruments. So it's quite impressive. It's quite deeply embedded. This is the message I want to give. Life cycle thinking and life cycle assessment is not some sort of optional toy. It's already deeply embedded in European policies. Let's have a look at some of the big bundles of EU activity and EU initiatives that we hear much about. We hear about the EU Green Deal, for example. Well, the life cycle basis of the European Green Deal is really quite astounding. So here we have the color codes again, the relevance of LCA, labeling, PEFs, life cycle thinking, the yellow one. So in many aspects of the Green Deal, we see that life cycle ideas and life cycle thinking is already deeply embedded. Strategy on the sustainable use of chemicals involves both PEFs and LCA, for example, quantitative calculation. Now we have some of these examples already in the LCA4Regions project, but this is just to give a picture of how deeply embedded in the European Green Deal already is life cycle thinking and life cycle tools. The farm to fork strategy. Farm to fork involves both the ecological aspects and the agricultural dynamics of the CAP, Common Agricultural Policy. We can see here we're making reference to the Sustainable Development Goals, i.e. the ambitions that we would have in these areas. We've dropped the focus on problems for the moment to concentrate more on ambitions, the goals, the journey we would like to take. And we see that the farm to fork strategy adopts a system perspective, reducing the overall environmental footprint, not just of the energy component or the carbon footprint, and supporting the sustainability labelling of food products. Now, I already said in my comment of the GPs, the good practices we've seen so far, there's been relatively little reference to how important labelling of food products is and labelling of other products is in green public procurement. We'll come back to that in a moment. Circular economy, harmonisation of product, green claims based on product environmental footprint, PF. Analysis of supply chains, this notion of the supply chain, the value chain again. Recall that we had circular economy as a life cycle based system, and here we have the application of it. So this is the conclusion that Ms. Serenella Sala has proposed to us in her longer presentation. The EU has put Sustainable Development Goals on top of its political agenda for the Green Deal. We saw that a moment ago. It needs a multi-interdisciplinary approach. So it needs a systems approach, not only an individual product approach. Integrated modelling, life cycle thinking and assessment are central in the Green Deal. And the improving the link between product and territorial policies is an essential step towards more effective environmental policies. So it's not only about the product, it's also about territorial policies. So let's now have a look at the relevance of the above to regional policies and programs, particularly looking at life cycle thinking in green procurement. Quick flashback to the EU green procurement policy, which is a monumental body of work that sort of underpins most of what we're trying to do at the regional level, making public procurement work in and for Europe. It's a communication, it's not a directive, it's not a regulation, it's a communication. But the revised Public Procurement Directive 2004 facilitating and ensure greater inclusion of societal goals in the procurement process. Societal goals include environmental goals. So it's not only about lowering the cost to the purchaser, but it's also about societal goals outside the direct interest of the purchaser. Well, I played around with green public procurement and I went to do a Google search, and what we can do, of course, is green public procurement images. That was a fantastic journey going through this. The things you find, I'd recommend you do this, go on this adventure yourselves and have a look at green public procurement and see what sort of images you can find. Well, and there are a lot of good examples here. Let's have a quick flashback now to the impacts of procurement. A huge range of environmental impacts across the product life cycle. So here we have the life cycle. Consumption is up here. So when we make a purchase down here, it has impacts not only on us, but it has impacts all the way down up the life chain and further down. Both, so we have impacts in the supply chain, we have impacts during usage, and we have impacts from the disposal phase. The disposal phase, we also flash back to the deleterious, damaging impacts that we have from some of the purchases that are implied, that are part of the world behind the product that we buy. So I would invite you all at some stage to go back to the life cycle toolbox and see how many of these tools could be relevant to us improving our effectiveness of green public procurement. I've highlighted the ones that I think are relevant in blue. You may like to add some, you might like to delete some, but what is relevant is the idea behind it, that for the life cycle toolbox, which of these tools can we usefully employ for improving green public procurement? And it stands to reason that there are quite a number of tools, but the ones that you would like to use depend on your local situation. One of the things that came out is that training, education, communication is really an essential part of effective application of green public procurement. So there's even a toolkit available that the EU has prepared. But what I would like to do up here is to stress that green public procurement is a journey as much as it is a destination. And along this journey, we continually re-educate ourselves. We continually learn from others. We try to learn from others. We try to impart our recent learnings in turn to others. So learning exchange, horizontal learning is a key part of this journey that we take. Let's have a quick look at the very interesting good practices that we had seen and heard about yesterday. These are the life cycle tools from the toolbox that various partners made mention of as they explained their own good practice. LCA, of course, occasional mention of social LCA. It's complicated to apply, it's true, but that should not discourage us. Quite regular references to life cycle costing. All of them were internal life cycle costing, i.e. the cost to the purchaser, the cost of purchase and the cost tomorrow, the cost during use and the cost in disposal. I did not see very much mention of extended life cycle costing, i.e. what were the costs to the community of me buying this product? So what was the world behind the product and where were the community costs that were incurred either close to me or in a faraway place? So this is still a challenge for the future. This is part of the journey. A greater use of extended life cycle costing, enlarging the scope of the costing exercise. Of course, carbon footprint, it is the issue of the moment, but I would say it's not the only issue of the moment. And sometimes in our enthusiasm to address the issue of the moment, we tend to forget some of the other issues of the moment. So there was mention of nutritional footprints, but there was less emphasis in the good practices of the effects also on water, on chemical toxicity, on land, and so forth, biodiversity, for example. So while we're addressing carbon footprint, maybe we should just keep an eye on some of the other things and try to make an estimate of what the spillover effects might be on some of the other sustainable development goals. Product standards and labels were mentioned, but I was personally disappointed that they were not mentioned more. Now, here's, by the way, the toolbox. Now, for some reason, I'm blocked here. Excuse me a moment. Okay, so this is Francisco already included some of these in his appreciation at the beginning of this session. Let me add a few of mine. Overall, the good practices that we saw and heard about yesterday were high quality. I was very impressed. So congratulations all the partners who put effort in. A very useful range and variety of examples and experiences from which we can learn, highlighting also challenges in implementation. But as part of this journey, let me make some observations. A variety of single and there's been a variety of single issue and multiple issue applications and laws. So some good practices were very tightly focused to the exclusion of other sustainable development goals. Some of the good practices included multiple SDGs in their considerations. Life chains were there, but mostly invisible. There was not much explicit mention of what happens upstream and downstream of the product. Potential spillover effects were not really very much mentioned. This is also something I think we can take to heart as we move forward. What was interesting, we're seeing qualitative life cycle thinking just as important as standardized LCA. But qualitative life cycle thinking requires a certain amount of rigor all the same. Life cycle use is increasing, but not yet estimating societal cost. I just mentioned that a moment ago. Low visibility of eco labels, and the metrics for the application of the selection criteria were sometimes missing. This is all, it's a big agenda, I have to admit. We cannot do everything at once. One thing that seems to be universal is that most regions and most countries have focused their green public purchasing effort on specific product types to the exclusion of other products. Now, to the extent that we're learning from our exercise on specific product types, this allows us to focus and learn and become more efficient in our metrics. This is true. But I would rather hope that eventually green public procurement becomes a generalized methodology, not only that focused on one or two product types. Following EU directive, yes. Illustrating tender processes as well as GP case studies is very good. What was interesting, especially after hearing the explanation of the clause verte from Marie Daru, we're seeing voluntary as well as regulatory green public procurement systems. This is also good. And need for documentation, guidance, and training. So I think we're well on our path. We're a long way down our journey already, and we can reflect on some of these issues as we move further forward. Next steps. Okay, the Q&A that will come in the next few minutes, I think will hopefully define some of the next steps. Some of the options that I see are enhancing the good practices that we have already. More talk to stakeholders to incorporate them in the GPP exercises, expand the training, and upgrade some of the procedures. These are some of the options, but no doubt you will have ideas yourselves. So thank you for listening to me, and good luck on the road ahead, and hope we can engage in a fruitful dialogue as this session goes on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fritz, for your very nice presentations and giving us a lot of challenges for the future work and also directions about the ways that we have to follow. So your presentation is open for questions and comments from the participants and project partners. So I would like to go ahead with the following question related to the external LCC, and I would like, and especially when I focus, use this in the field of public procurement. Usually, when issuing tenders and going ahead with this, in these tenders, because they are prepared by lawyers, and then everything must be well defined so that especially the procurers know how to make the calculations and what to put in their applications. So I am thinking, and whether there are any activities done in the community that you know very well, how to quantify precisely these societal effects, and then to do the LCC regarding these effects.
Well, I have to admit that extended environmental LCC is still a huge challenge, but we should proceed one step at a time. And what we have at the moment is a proposal for a pilot project with Alessandro in the Lombardy region to take one element of the external environment, and this is the climate change agenda, and see where we can find some metrics for calculating external costs for that. So I think what we need is for all of us to make an attempt at this in a small way, share the experience, as a means of expanding and perfecting the method of moving forward on this. I don't think we should give up. I think we should try in a small way, share the experience and go on. And we're negotiating at the moment with the Joint Secretariat to see if we can have approval to carry out this pilot project in Lombardy. And after that, we'll be ready to share the experience with you all. But if we're serious about the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to take the external environment into account in purchasing. And that means using some of the methods that in the life cycle toolbox to look at the external impacts also. But I agree it's a challenge.
Yes, that's right. Okay, thank you very much for this. Are there further questions or comments regarding the presentation given by Fritz? It seems also in the live discussion board there are only thoughts being collected. There are no new questions as I can see. So also here in the chat area, it's the same. So I can further share some in what Fritz replied to me. I can further share how the things are going on in Slovenia. As you could see during the first day of the event, all the legislation is mostly prepared and conducting regarding the public procurement and green public procurement by the Public Procurement Directorate. But as Mr. Matas told me already some time ago, all the personnel there are lawyers, so that's why they need the assistance and help from other ministries, and in this regard they strongly cooperate with the Ministry of the Environment and Spatial Planning of the Republic of Slovenia, and also Mr. Tsarovšek, who was the speaker, comes from this ministry, because at this ministry they have experts who can actually help those at the Public Procurement Directorate, then how to make the legislation, and then also how to prepare the tender documentation and all these equations and directions to procurers, how to do the calculations, and then to participate in this procurement procedure. So it's it's indeed an interdisciplinary approach by involving experts from different fields in the government. So if there are no further questions, so I think then that we can move forward in our program. And now we are at the point at which Ms. Irena Hvala, coming from the project office at the National Institute of Chemistry in Ljubljana, Slovenia, will present the Slovenian policy context. And this is a document that was also shared to all the project partners some time ago. So Ms. Hvala prepared a PowerPoint presentation, and she will give the talk for next 20 minutes. She's facing some health troubles, but she will do her best to give the presentation. So Irena, please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Pinter. Yes, I'm a bit under the weather, so I hope I will not start coughing. I have my tea and my Ricolas here. I hope I will manage, but if I start coughing, I will just mute myself for a second. So I will start and share my presentation. Can you see anything?
Yes, we can see your screen, but please now go into the show mode.
Yes, I will. I just need to. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. So I will try to present shortly the broader context of our public procurement here in Slovenia. And I will touch some different points that are kind of the background of how we got there and what are our goals for the future. I will start with Slovenian development strategy, which represents the state's new core development framework and was set out in the Vision of Slovenia. This was a special document. The Vision of Slovenia I will speak about later, and reviews the current situations and global trends and challenges. We included sustainable development goals as they were set out in the UN's 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And our main goal was, and still is, to implement the Global Development Plan. We want to improve the most the area of quality of life and economic development so that the Slovenia will become economically highly developed country. We maybe think we are, but there's always place for improvement. The different paths to better life for all inhabitants of Slovenia is something that pushes her forward. And we are aware of our responsibilities in the global context. So Slovenian development strategy, therefore, also includes sustainable development goals. The point of interdependence and coordination between sectoral policies and development stakeholders, this is something we want to improve further because, as we can see, we all have some problems there. We set out the rules and regulations, and then we follow them as best as we can, but sometimes there are hurdles we need to conquer. And there's always place for improvement and adjust. We need to adjust to certain things like technological improvement and everything. If we check this picture, maybe it seems complex, but it actually isn't. So there's development strategy and the vision of Slovenia, and they are intertwined, and also effective implementation. And here we always find ourselves when we see we can still improve. So in order to achieve the objectives of the development strategy effectively, it is very important to apply the guidelines consistently and also monitor the success of the implementation, and then take measures in the event of discrepancies, and also make continuous adjustments to new situations, like I said before, because there are always new challenges in Slovenia and the EU and also around the world, as we all see now. So it is very, very necessary to increase the interdependence in cooperation between everyone and all the countries. Everyone that's interested and the ones that maybe for now are not. And in order to become a society that understands how to deal with change and uncertainty and challenges, we want to create the conditions for and establish a systemic approach to sustainable development. This is the point where we still maybe struggle and are taking some actions this year, the following years, and in the future. We will go into systemic approach and into deep demonstrations. Slovenia is one of the countries where deep demonstrations will happen in the following years. So if we go on to the vision of Slovenia in 2050, It was created by our inhabitants in an extensive and inclusive process, and it describes the vision of the country that we would like to live in and that we would like to have our future in. It's a key factor in determining the country's long-term development orientations. We want to live in harmony with our environment and our era, and want to achieve a high, balanced quality standard of living. Our vision is the future that is based on trust, quality of life, innovative society, continuous learning, for and through life, and our identity. We put cultural inheritance also in one of the very important points of our vision for our future. So here is a little model of everything, like I said. So positive relationships and trust is something we want to put forward in our vision. Society of solidarity and tolerance. And also it's very important for us to cooperate with our domestic and foreign partners. And look for a future together based on green future and sustainable development. Like I said previously, for our development goals, our primary objective is high quality of life for all. And in order to achieve this objective, we want to focus on 5 strategic orientations, which are inclusive, healthy, safe and responsible society, highly productive economy that will create added value for all, continuous learning, cooperation, competence and government efficiency. This is what we want to see. Well-preserved natural environment, which we try and are quite successful at it because we rank very highly in the World Index, like I will speak about later on. And these strategic orientations, these 5 strategic orientations, are linked to the development goals that are healthy and active life, knowledge and skills, decent life for all, culture and language as main factors of national identity. We don't want to forget about that. Economic stability, competitive and socially responsible, entrepreneurial and research sector. We want to focus also on the research sector. Inclusive labor market and high quality jobs. About the circular economy, we want to see it become low carbon. And we want to have the management that is sustainable according to our natural resources. We would like to see trustworthy legal system, a safe and globally responsible Slovenia that includes effective governance and high quality public service. We hope to achieve all these goals, like I said, in the future, at least until 2050. This is our vision. And in order to achieve that, we have some measures and some partnerships and some strategies, and also public procurement goes into this window. We have so-called SRIPs, Strategic Research and Innovation Partnerships, that are networks for the transition into circular economy. They connect Slovenian business subjects, educational and research institutions, non-governmental organizations, and other interested partners and parties. And they try to collaborate with the state and everyone, and they aim to establish new value chains according to the economic principles of closed material flows, touching all the points of circular economy, like raw materials and recycling, design, production, processing, distribution, use, reuse, and repair and collection, the whole circle. We have achieved some success and we still haven't, but I hope in the future we will get there. The path is right, I think, and we are trying to see the progress. in order to achieve the circular economy, grow and establish to its full potential in Slovenia, we have a roadmap. I already said before about the systemic approach, the sustainable development. We want to become a society that understands it, that knows how to deal with change, uncertainty of life, and challenges ahead of us. We have some important goals of the roadmap. We want to outline the potentials that establish Slovenia as the leader of the transition into the circular economy in the Central and Eastern Europe. We want to involve stakeholders to identify and connect circular practices. And we want to identify opportunities for the strengthening of international economic competitiveness and quality of life for all. We established the so-called circular triangle that unites three inseparable elements: circular economy, circular change, and circular culture. With these three aspects, we want to achieve the core of systemic change. But we especially emphasize the importance of circular culture, because we are aware that without reconsidering our values, creating new narratives, and changing our behavioral patterns, we cannot hope for a change in the economic models or a corresponding shift on a governmental level, of course. So circular culture is the aspect that seems to be of the greatest importance and transformative capital for Slovenia. And I think this is great, because everything should and is supposed to start from the people. This is the best path to success, I believe. If it comes from the people, everything is much easier, as opposed to the opposite. If we just think of regulation and orders, and if people do not feel it and don't want to live by it, the success of the measures is questionable. So I think it's very important to focus first on citizens and this circular culture, and everything will be easier from then on. I'm sure you all know the smart specialization strategy, and you've heard of many things I'm speaking today. I just want to point out what are the core things that lead us here in Slovenia. This strategy is a strategy for strengthening competitiveness of economy, innovation capacity, in the diversification of the existing industry. With this smart specialization strategy, Slovenia wishes to build on its natural assets and focus on its specifics and support the achieved broader public consensus. This is very important for us, to achieve broad public consensus with regard to the vision of the Green Slovenia, which should be clean and healthy, and as such attractive for life and work. Circular, since it will base its development on the principles of circular economy. This is what we wish for. And calm and serene, with the shift to the innovative society. We want to be innovators and makers of the future. We want to be open to new ideas and talents, new experiments, which is enabled and encouraged by our tolerance and safe environment. We have set and defined priority areas of application of this strategy, and special emphasis was placed on the preparation of sound empirical basis. And the key economic industries in Slovenia, for now, the main are chemical industry, which is also the National Institute of Chemistry is related to. Pharmacy and medical equipment, manufacture of basic metals and fabricated metal products, electronic and electrical industry, mechanical engineering, automotive and nautical industry, and so on. So we have chosen the industries where we want to see this happen. So we have some priorities set and we are working really hard to achieve it. And in this context, now the green public procurement comes into force. In the framework of green public procurement, as we all know, a contracting authority acquires goods or services and works that have a reduced environmental impact throughout the life cycle compared to ordinary goods, services, and works. And they should conserve natural resources, materials, and energy, but have the same or even better functionality under the Public Procurement Act. This is what guides all the public procurement here in Slovenia. These are basic guidelines. And as we have spoken about in the previous 2 days, we have set 2 product groups of public procurement for now. I have a list here, which I won't read because I'm sure you already know it or have read it by yourself. Every group has its own specifics and documents, and everything is very well technically written and described. But I think it's very important that the examples of environmental requirements and criteria are updated at least every 2 years, according to the technological development, market situation, and the legislation and guidelines of the European Union and the Republic of Slovenia. I'm sure you will agree, but the technical improvements and development and things on market are changing so rapidly that this really needs to be done. Because then if we do not update the requirements and criteria, then we stay in the past. We need to follow the future. So this is very important. The specifications need to be updated regularly. So I just wanted to show you, this is our Slovenian portal, online portal for public procurement. This is a screenshot. As you can see, the date, it's unfortunately only in Slovenian here, but if you can see the date for yesterday, 26th of May, there's a huge list of published public procurement acts and calls. But this is even not the full list. So every day there is a lot of calls for tenders for public procurement here in Slovenia. And it's working pretty well, I think. So we can be proud. Everything is online, everything is transparent, and everything is free to anyone to open, to read about it, and to apply if it's necessary, if he can. So I want to finalize and go to the final point and talk about how all these aspects and all this hard work and all these our visions and goals and everything we have done, we can see the results already. According to the 2020 Environmental Performance Index, I'm sure at least some of you are aware of it. It's provided by Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy and from Columbia University. Slovenia ranks among the top 10% of the countries around the world. We are ranked on the 18th place among the 180 countries, which is quite a lot, I think. And we are especially proud to be ranked among the top 5 countries in the area of ecosystem vitality, which includes biodiversity, ecosystem services, climate change, pollution emissions, agriculture, and water resources. And this measures how well countries are preserving, protecting, and enhancing ecosystems and the services they provide. And I think we can be quite proud of that. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Irena, for your very nice and detailed presentation about the Slovenian policy context. So, as I could see, so there is one. We have time for a short question. So there is a question in the live discussion board, and it goes as following: is smart specialization strategy interconnected with green public procurement policies?
I'm not sure if they are directly interconnected. There's just the basis. Everything can be intertwined because the same spirit, the same focus and vision are following us. But with public procurement, we can achieve some of the goals and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. And there is one more question here in the chat area from Elsa. It says the following. Hi, thanks so much for the interesting presentation. What do you feel to be the impact of this green performance in overall economy and employment?
This is a hard question. Maybe something for all of us to think about. I'm sure there are some cases of even employment, new employment following the green performance and recycling. One I know here in my environment is recycling here in a small town of Vrhnika near Ljubljana. They recycle all things. They have a shop which is called Stara roba, nova raba. Old stuff, new usage. I would just translate it like this. Old stuff for new usage. So you can bring your old things you don't need anymore, or they even select it from the garbage that people put in the garbage, and if it's still usable, they fix it, they correct if there's something, and they improve it if however they can, and then they have a shop. The municipality gave them free space, and they have a very nice shop with these old things for I said new usage, and they have employed 2 or 3 people that they finance only from this. For example, this is like one small example, but on the states, on the level of the state, I would need to check if there was such an analysis, if it was made. Maybe anyone else knows if there was any analysis about the impact.
Okay, thank you. We can think about this in later on and inform Elsa about the details, or about the let's say detailed about the detailed response to her question. What Mr. Zeroshek wrote in the chat here is that this will be conducted in the coming years.
Great.
Okay, so now it's time for all of us to do the peer review of the Slovenian policy context, and this will be done in breakout session rooms. So, and there will be moderators. So who will moderate the discussion. So this discussion will be moderated by Nina Pecholer, Ivica Ilic, and Irena Hvala. So you will find them online in these breakout session rooms, and this peer review session will last for 30 minutes. So now we are all requested to enter in these breakout session rooms that you can find that you can find the links to go to the breakout session in the area for participants in this WebEx platform main room. So please go there to this participants level.
I'm sorry, Albin.
Yes.
Can I just add one technical suggestion? Because each moderator will invite participants in the different room to a live discussion board. Please don't see.
It will not be like this, okay? So that's why please listen to the instructions that I am giving. Yes. So the moderators will also enter these rooms as we are going to enter. So everybody is free to select a room he would like to enter and to follow the discussion there. It will be like this, Francesco, you know. So the moderators know which room they are going to moderate. They will be there, and we are all invited to enter these breakout session rooms. Okay, so so you can find in the participant area, you can find links for these breakout session rooms in the WebEx platform. Okay, and then after 30 minutes, we are all asked to come back to this main room. Okay, so I think this is understood what I described. And if you have any technical problem to enter these breakout session rooms, if this connection doesn't work, so please write into the chat area that if you have problem and to which room you would like to be transferred, then the technical assistant will manually transfer you to the breakout session room. Okay, so let's try this experiment if it works. So we find we will now split in 3 rooms to do the discussion there, and then after 30 minutes, that is, let's say at 12 and 20, we will come back to the main meeting room. Okay, thank you.
Albin?
Yes.
Albin. It's Pekka here.
Yes.
One question, because Finland is not mentioned in those breakout rooms at all. So I believe that Slovenia means Finland. Is that correct?
So I don't know, maybe now, let's say this list was given to me by Sandra, then maybe
yes,
she can tell
Albin,
me.
sorry, maybe it was a mistake by me.
Yes.
So we can join all together Slovenia, Finland, and Navarra.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So let's go now to these breakout session rooms. And if any technical problem, the technical assistant will follow the chat area in the main room, and then he will transfer participants attending the event to the desired breakout session room. Okay. Okay.
Hello, Albin.
Hello, I'm not sure I'm in the correct meeting room. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Elsa, it's Yolanta.
Oh, hi, Yolanta. How are you?
I'm not sure that I'm in the right place because, as I understood, I opened the file and this was like Miro form.
Yes, I'm not sure how I got here, but I'm not also sure that this is the place where I should be.
Okay,
but perhaps I will try to leave now and go back to the main room, close this one, and try to get help from Albin. I will do it now. So see you soon.
See you.
I think I got back to the same.
Yolanta, Nelsa,
Yes.
there is, if you go, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear.
If you go to the participant at the top, there is how to enter in the breakout session.
Okay.
Can you see a link?
Yes.
No,
Fritz, okay, you are here also.
I'm
So
here.
you, I have opened the participant button, and at the top there is the breakout session have started. You can join any session. So you have a link there, and you can join to any of the session.
Meeting info. I don't have it. Connected. Recording, meeting info.
Hola, buenos días a los que estáis por ahí que no sé si os habéis podido unir a la sesión. Hay un enlace abriendo la opción de los participantes. A mí me sale arriba un enlace para ir al grupo, a la sesión en la que quieras participar. Entonces, podéis entrar si queréis en la sesión que está prevista para Navarra y para Eslovenia. So, Fritz, can you find it?
Yeah, I found it. Is this the session I should be in?
Okay, and you can go with any group you prefer. Yes, I'm going to join.
Join breakout session. Just a minute.
Hello, we are slowly coming back to the main meeting room. As it shows here, there are 23 participants present in the main meeting room, so maybe there is some discussion going on, perhaps in another room. So maybe we shall wait. We shall wait for a few more moments. So there is still discussion going on in the breakout session room between colleagues from Portugal and Lithuania. So we will wait for a few more moments before we continue. So, dear colleagues, we will continue with the discussion and the further program in the main meeting room at 12:30. So it means after 2 minutes from now. So thank you everyone for coming back to the main meeting room. So as I could see that I could feel the discussions were very fruitful in the breakout session rooms. So I thank for all this. I thank all of you for participating in the discussions about the Slovenian national policy context, and I thank the moderators for all the work they have done in the breakout session rooms. So we will continue with the program, and since the since the discussion just recently completed in one of the rooms, I will first ask Ivica for going ahead and briefly report about the discussion that was going on in the breakout session room in which Spain, Finland, and Slovenia were participating. So, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Pinter. Hello to everybody. So our breakout session included, as already said, Slovenia, Spain, region of Navarra, and Finland. Our observation aspect was extent and sufficiency of life cycles methods in applying policy instruments. And mostly we were discussing about a few main concepts gathered around the circular economy. So we have evaluated the, let's say, the policy context we have presented in a form of the deliverable, and also spoke about the appropriateness of circular economy model, the current level of, let's say, implementation of the method, as well as speaking about the strategic regional innovation partnership for the networks toward transition into circular economy. How is it consisted, what it includes, so includes full quadruple helix of organizations. So these were just ideas around which we were discussing. So policies are in place, action has started, and it continues.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like now to ask Irena to give a report about the discussion that was done in the room in which Italy and Poland were participating. So please.
Yes, thank you. We had a great discussion. Both partners prepared their presentations from Polish and from Italian point of view, and they were very thorough. They went through our peer review document from point to point and commented and spoke about the differences and what they find positive, and if they find some negative things that need some improvement. We also tried Miro. I tried to put on the sticky notes as much as I could. So maybe now, if I already did all the work, I can share it to you, the Miro board. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, okay then. See, I tried to put in all three observations about the points. So I think the first observation was the most populated, and the most ideas come from that. So the comments were they thought the goals are realistic. They like the smart specialization strategy and the circular economy, the special roadmap. We agreed that the GPP issues, all countries struggle with some things, but there was a comment from Poland that they really liked the accuracy and the up-to-date aspect of it, so that everything is online, everything is transparent. They can see the positive aspects of the work we do here. They love that we here in Slovenia try to involve the public, the people. For example, in the Vision 2050, that we gathered ideas and thoughts from people. So this is something which is very important, I think. And they also like the circular triangle, and also our emphasis on the culture and the people and the behavior. Then we discussed the dialogue with stakeholders, which we all believe is crucial. Then we talked about how to monitor and measure the success. This is something we all need to think about, monitoring our process. Also the sustainable development goals. We talked about this. This is, I think the Italian part really liked that it is included in our policy, which is a good basis for developing policies and regulations. And they can see in the future, especially now after the pandemic crisis, we could focus on bringing more job opportunities from the green sector. And they liked our description of the Vision 2050. This is that we base our future on trust, quality of life, innovative society, learning, and identity. So I think this is briefly, I hope I put everything there, but maybe the partners would like to then, after the workshop, share the presentations they prepared. This is from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for giving the report. And now I'm asking Nina to give the report about the discussion which was going on in the room, in which Lithuania and Portugal were participating. Thank you.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, Professor Pinter. I was coordinated or moderated the open discussion with the representatives from Portugal, Lithuania, and also from Spain, Navarra. Sandra joined us. So I would like to thank all three ladies for such interactive and lively discussion on three observations that were already defined in advance. I will start to share my screen. Now I hope you can see it well.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So with regard to the first observation to the adequacy of the policy instruments in Slovenia to enhance environmental protection, as the first observation, we see the need to increase the coordination between sectoral policies. And in a way, it was emphasized to engage the different stakeholders. It is much important to include or to engage them early on in the regulation making process, not only at the final stage. And further to this, the increase of awareness on the GPP and LCA benefits is also necessary, especially in the private sector. So this would allow implementation of the regulatory policy tools efficiently. still the great improvement has been made in the past years on the development of the regulatory policy tools and policy instruments that have been developed. So all the EU, we were discussing that actually all the EU directives and also regulations are in place in all participating countries. So the policy framework, each country has somehow of their roadmap and some national green public procurement regulations with a law. In Slovenia, as we heard, we have applying to these to 20 product groups that is enhancing resource efficiency and also environmental protections. It was also emphasized that the most important is also the citizen engagement in this process. So to stipulate the green public procurement processes. It was said that people are motivated to make changes, but market overall is not always prepared with all green products and solutions yet, especially if we are talking for the large, I would say, large scale production. The transition is very important to be well coordinated and also to provide, I would say, new thinking of a circular economy that is in a way was well developed also in Slovenia. With regard to the second observations, the life cycle methods in applying policy instruments are useful, especially in Slovenia with the developed GPP compliant tender documentation with the national and EU examples, including the life cycle assessment, and also it is one of the good tool or methods also available one-stop shop for public and private sector. It is of great support in applying all those policy instruments. Then also was raised that training and workshops are really necessary for, in a way, for a civil servant and also for SMEs. Further improvements are suggested for data sets and resources, as also heard in the last two days at the conference. Some accessible tools should be established, I would say, on the open data principle, also to be freely available for all with the structured information at the sector, because now it's not the case this in all countries. And also, as I already mentioned, to invest in human resources. So there is a lack of LCA and LCC expert and tools. Following the last observation, as a good practice to be useful and might be adopted in other regions and countries, has been recognized green clause presented on the first day, and the same for the KNO competence network presented today. We see it as a good example to consider in increasing awareness raising of strategic procurement management. That is, I will say, in a way crucial in each country. Lithuania see the possibility to increase the level of awareness on LCA in the country and to build capacity on local consultants on GPP and LCA. It was green public procurement and LCA toolbox is a good example from Slovenia to be presented to Lithuanian stakeholders, and also for the same for the Navarra region. This is a good example that was recognized, is also the green public procurement portal. And as with notes stated there is also that I would say each country should have, or this central purchasing is an important enabling tool, and green procurement is growing in popularity. So this is finalize some suggestions to consider and develop the future action plan in Slovenia and also in other partner regions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your report. So at this point, I would like to thank Irena, Nina, and Ivica for their great contribution to the event and for your role as both as either a presenter or moderators during the transnational learning journey in Slovenia. So thank you all on behalf of the participants and on my own behalf.
Thank you.
We will now continue with the final part of the transnational learning journey, which was devoted to the exchange of experience in the field of green public procurement. So this now we are at the very final point, which is the wrap-up session, and I will ask Francesco, as already several times throughout the event, to give some thoughts and comments.
Thanks, Albin. Let's say that it was a very dense and intense day. I think that rather than a proper wrap-up session, we have a lot of food for thought for wrap-up and follow-up materials to be shared with partners. Just to give you an idea, I was while moderators, thanks for your very good job where presenting the discussion, the results of the discussion of the three different rooms. I was starting to, no, sorry, it's not that one, to put together the results of the three boards and I was starting to delete overlapping comments and starting to make a bit of work on clusters. I think that it will need a bit of time, so it will be follow-up materials to keep the discussions alive within the project framework, and why not also out of the project framework for the between the very precious network of stakeholders we had during the day. So even considering that we are a bit out of time, I thank you all for populating this experimentation of online live boards, and let's try to build together some effective follow-up through this way of working.
Okay, thank you very much. So now at this point, we are all invited also to give whatever comment or question. So there is still room for some questions and comments from either project partners or participants. So for sure, I think there might be some thoughts also further given by Fritz. It's always nice to hear his comments and directions about future work that must be done in the field. I think that we can all profit from his great knowledge in the area of life cycle assessment methodologies. So Fritz, if you like, you can still give some thoughts to all of us.
Thank you, Albin. As you say, the transnational learning journey has been a great journey. This is definitely the best of the TLJs we've had so far. They're getting better all the time. I learned a lot. There's a lot of insights, and greener procurement is, of course, an area that touches us all. I think I've made most of my comments already through the notice board and through the presentation, but I'd just like to point out two things that I hold very strongly. One is the horizontal learning that I mentioned in my reply to my comment to the excellent Finnish presentation. I think if we are better at measuring the rate at which our good practices are being copied by someone else, I think it would encourage everyone along. The second comment was the life cycle costing. And I think I'd just like to repeat that expanded life cycle costing is definitely a difficult area. So we should tackle it slowly, but we should not hold back. And the pilot project that we have with Lombardy region, we're looking forward to good results, and we hope to share that learning experience as well. So that's really all I want to say. I think the good practices have been good. We look forward to, as I said, it's a learning journey. We look forward to all of you joining us on the journey as we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fritz. So it seems there are no further questions at this point. So I think now then we come to the very final part of this event. So it's actually to do the farewell. So before doing that, I have a very small request for all of you. I would like if you can switch on your cameras so that we can do the screen capture also of participants who are still here with us in the very final part of the event. So first of all, I would like to say that we are indeed very much sorry that we were not able to welcome you in Ljubljana, or in Slovenia, to do the event on site. But I am sure that by using the different technologies that are at our disposal, that we were able to make this event in a very good way. So I also would like to, on this point regarding the technical assistance and support, I would like to thank Mr. Samo Ritosha from DNet company, who was here with us for the last 3 days, and also in the past regarding to arrange all the technical details. Then I would also like to thank my colleague Gregor Žerjav and colleagues from the project office at the National Institute of Chemistry here in Ljubljana, as well as the head of the project office, Dr. Barbara Tischler, for supporting us in organizing this event and for all the help regarding the support regarding the content of the event. So I would also like to thank all of you for the participation and for all your contributions and fruitful discussion in the event. So I think that during these 3 days, we were all able to learn a lot of new knowledge, to gain a lot of new experience, and that in the coming weeks, months, and years, we will be able to transfer this knowledge into our regions and countries, and to make our lives better, and not only to make our lives better, but also to make our regions, countries, the continent, and the world as a whole better. So we think we learned a lot, as I said, a lot of new things. We all know about the things that we are doing, what we could do better, and I think that through this, what we did in the last 3 days, we all can start with some procedures and then to do the activities that we have been doing already for some time, to do them even better. So with all this, I would like to thank you for for the participation at the transnational learning journey, which was organized here in Slovenia on green public procurement. And I hope that we will all enjoy also the next transnational learning journey that is going to be organized in the coming months by our colleagues from Poland. So I wish you all a nice day. I wish you all good work in the field and all the best in your future career. So have a nice day and see you next time. Okay, bye bye.
Thanks for your organization, Alvin. It was excellent.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Alvin, and to all participants.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Alvin. See you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Welcome. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Moraš jo znati, razdeliti še drugam. Toliko gora, od tam, kjer smo doma, naj sliši se uspeh, je našega pisa. Saj da je svetliva čast, se poveseli in kdaj znak potrpeti. Najdimo vrslastjo, kot prej nikoli, saj za prijatelje svetliva čast ti. Veseli, kaj znak potrpeti. Najdimo vrslastjo, kot prej nikoli, saj za prijatelje dobre. Najboljše.